In the previous episode, I sailed from Cooktown to Lizard Island, and here I continue northwest and then north again on long day sails to Stanley Island in the Flinders Group, Morris Island, Portland Roads, and finally Shelburne Bay. This stretch of the Queensland coast has relatively few refuges, and conditions were generally even stronger southeast trade winds, and as a result I only went ashore on Morris Island. The wind noise in my iPhone microphone requires that I voice over several more clips. Each of these day sails was rather long. For example, the first one was 80 miles, the longest I'd sailed in a single day. So with no islands or reefs to hit for quite a while, I got up at 2 a.m. in the dark and headed northwest, greeting the dawn 4 hours later. The first island was Howick Island, and a sailboat came into view in front of the light on the island, and it turned out to be John on Stalker, and we kept in radio contact all day, although he was a lot faster than us in his light catamaran. Although we were sailing in the shipping lanes, here there were no ships, apparently because they now take a more easterly route. But this apparent ferry catamaran came racing past us, doing 25 knots to our 5 to 7 knots.
We are headed down here towards Cape Belleville. No, yes, I think that's right. No, Melville. And famed for its big granite rocks, part of the national park. We turn that, drive to port, and go across to the Flinders group of islands to anchor for the night.
Rounding Cape Melville, we encountered a compression zone with very strong wind and were easily doing 7 to 8 knots with help from the tidal flow. A rather wild ride that required we avoid yet another set of rocks on the right, but making good speed towards the Flinders group of islands further west. Here is Stalker in our anchorage off Stokes Bay on Stanley Island, a pleasant, quiet spot, but we were both so tired we did not go ashore, instead enjoyed a gorgeous sunset and the promise of the return of the moon.
Oh, it's Wednesday, 7th of August. This morning we had a light breeze from the south, able to come all the way across Princess Charlotte Bay, doing 3-4 knots. It's okay, but then around 11 we just ran out of wind. So we've been motoring for 2 hours since then, but here's the weird thing: the trade wind clouds, these low clouds, are moving across southeast trades, no problem, but there's nothing down here, although maybe beginnings of a breeze here. Anyway, we're in a shipping channel, doesn't seem to be much used. You see one of the lights here on the tip of this big reef. Maybe you can see a long sand cay because it's getting to low tide now, which is helping us, but later it's going to flood and that's going to impede us. We want to go another 20 miles or so this way to an island called Morris Island to anchor for tonight. If I'd known it was going to be this calm, I would have gone to the outer reef. Very frustrating. My friend John on his catamaran is way behind us, and I imagine that he's having to sail because he doesn't have a diesel. He's just got an outboard in a well in the middle between the two legs of the catamaran.
After 14 hours, I arrived at Morris Island, another long day covering 60 miles, with too little wind at the start, but plenty at the end. This is yet another typical low island, and this time I paddled the surf ski into the island for a walk around. This island is unusual in that someone had planted sisal plants, which now dominate the island with just a small amount of natural vegetation and a few palms left. The gulls were tenacious in scolding me. Perhaps they had nests in the sisal plants.
presume they have nests somewhere in here. There are some native trees over on the other side, and they're full of noddies. Cool. Low tide, and the reef is huge and just a muddy mess basically. Not really rocky or corally. Kind of strange.
There was a huge weathered and worm-ridden log on the beach. I could only wonder how far it had come across the Pacific, conceivably all the way from French Polynesia.
Washed all the way across thousands of kilometers probably to this beach. It's the first land for a long, long way. And on this leeward side of the island, there's some native vegetation. There's about 6-7 palms, more sisals. You can see some trees up ahead here. That's where the noddies are. At least roosting, but I think nesting as well. Lots of black noddies. On the beach here there's some pied oyster catchers, but they'll be hard to see, plus 2 white egrets way in the distance there. Another gorgeous day. Nice strong southeast trade winds. I've been flying along all day, and the wind's really strong now. Going downwind with the tidal stream with us, doing 7 to 8 knots here with the full jib again. And it's been this way the whole day with the full jib, but we were on a slightly normal reach earlier. And here's Quintessa.
Lady Quintessa had joined us at Morris Island the night before. I left at 4 a.m. and they left an hour later and eventually caught up with us. Note that they were using primarily their mainsail, albeit triple reefed, and a mostly furled genoa. We talked on the radio and agreed to take pictures and video of each other, which was fine until it was not fine.
A gorgeous day sailing. We're going to get down to Portland Roads in about 2 hours from now.
Hey you, how you going?
I took this picture of Lady Quintessa and this video as she closed on us, sailing just a little bit faster. But David engaged the autopilot so that he could exit the cockpit to video us, and it nearly led to disaster.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, that was nearly a disaster. Tessa missed the back of us by about a meter. I mean, it's that close. Wow, that was a little scary. This is Restoration Rock. This is where Bly and his crew in their open boat, having been kicked off the Bounty during the mutiny, is where they arrived. They came through the reef and arrived here, and this is Restoration Island. Behind it there is Cape Weymouth. We're going to what's known as Portland Roads ahead there.
Here's the chart for Portland Roads anchorage, also sometimes spelled and pronounced without the S, and the satellite view of our track into it.
And anchored at Portland Roads. There's a little village here, but sadly no cell service. Really annoying. But anyway, it looks like a nice quiet place for the night. And just scan around here, you can see that it's a bit of a beach here, but a reef in front, and then mangroves all the way around. And the warning is salt water falls. Here on the other side is a derelict shrimp trawler that someone is living on, unfortunate name of Destiny. And there's Quintessa, came in with her. Tomorrow we've got another long stretch to, oh boy, let me get the name wrong.
The next day, in very strong conditions, we arrived at a constriction in the shipping lanes between 2 reefs, each with a light on the edge of it. just as a container ship was approaching from the north. I talked with them on the radio, and we agreed to pass port to port, but it still felt like a very tight squeeze. And here is the light marking the western edge of the other reef on our starboard side. It really did feel like a very close call going between these two reefs and a container ship.
Crossing a really rough section here in strong winds. I've just got a tiny smidgen of jib out, and the wind pilot has been struggling to steer, which is unusual, so I got the tiller autopilot steering. Got the hatch closed here because water's coming in, soaking the electronics, which is not good. And it doesn't seem that bad right now, but every now and again a wave will come right up to the edge here and try to come into the cockpit. Here we go. Try to come into the cockpit. Man, crazy short steep waves right between two sets of reefs. So a long channel here with lots of fetch rolling us. Anyway, getting there.
By now we were down to perhaps 1/5 of the jib and racing along, although once we got behind another reef, the waves came down and sea change was much more stable.
So we're not rolling from side to side anymore. We're trying to get to this cape up ahead here, Cape Grenville. We go around that into a bay and anchor. There's a bay called Margaret Bay, but then another one called Shelburne. I think I'll go to Shelburne. It's a little bit further, closer to our next anchorage.
I eventually let the covered mainsail far out to leeward, and that helped stabilize us even more as we crossed the shipping lanes.
Yeah, and we have two more bulk carriers, Venus Harmony here, and Shanghai Spirit over here. And I think that's it for us for today, because we are going to, we've left the shipping lanes and we're going to go through this passage up ahead here between the islands to a bay.
It was a tight passage with islands and reefs all around us, requiring some hand steering at times, and made more complicated by a humpback whale right in front of us, which fortunately moved off to the left.
Glad you got out of the way. I mean, there's coral, there's islands, there's birds, black noddies everywhere. I just got a heck of a hit on this line here, this fishing line. But I think it snapped. I think it must have snapped. This is Sunday Island. Unfortunately, the sun's right behind it, so it just looks like a black mass. This is where Bly's crew next landed. Had a mini mutiny within the crew, plus all sorts of other weird stories. Anyway, we are blasting our way down here, 6-7 knots. Again, nice small jib. We're headed to Round Point, over there, into Shelburne Bay. Gonna anchor. This over here is called Margaret Bay. I want to get a little bit further so that tomorrow is not quite such a long trip.
Here is the account of the mini mutiny on Sunday Island from the guidebook, which also relates a very strange tale of a shipwrecked couple. The statistics on crocodile fatalities was rather outdated, as their populations have recovered, and recently there were several fatalities, including one in Hinchinbrook Channel where I had anchored, and one near Cooktown.
Oh, that was quite a day. About an hour from the anchorage. Lovely turquoise water here now. The sunlight. There's a cloud coming, but yeah, wild ride down here, or up here. Promises one more or two more tomorrow, and then up to Cape York on Sunday. It's all going according to plan, so far so good.
Once again, the chart showing our anchorage in Shelburne Bay and the satellite view with our track into the bay. The wind was howling through the bay, precluding my launching the dinghy or paddling the surf ski, so once again I stayed on the boat.
Banding pattern of the sand here by the shore, but I'm not going to be able to go ashore in this wind, and in any case a little freaked out about the crocodiles.
In the next episode, I complete this long Queensland coastal passage via the Escape River to pass Cape York and enter the Torres Straits to Thursday and Thorn Islands at the end of the Coral Sea and the Pacific Ocean.